Okay, if you're just coming in from the recording, you didn't miss anything. I am benchmarking the JSON route of the TechEmpower Rails benchmark. I'm doing the JSON route because, in theory, the JSON route is pretty much the same work for Rota and the same work for Rails. They both use the same JSON serializer, so that should be in theory the same. So really, it's just testing the overhead, the area around the framework. I've already benchmarked with Apache Bench to find that the Rails benchmark on my machine is 4.55 milliseconds, which funnily enough is actually faster than it is on TechEmpower, which is funny. But I get a consistent benchmark result here. So now I'm going to dig in with Ruby Profiler, and I'm going to use the call stack profiler to get an idea of where the time is going. But we're going to add RubyProf as a middleware. So I believe that'll go here. I need a new temp path, which I'll just put it here. I don't think this directory exists, so I will make it. Okay. And now when I run this, it should have a profiler around it. I think this will just print. This will just print to a flat file in the temp directory. We will see. Whoops, wrong route. I need hello world JSON. What was it? Hello_world JSON. Okay, so that's the JSON. Now I should have something in the temp directory. I don't. I might have to close Ruby Profiler, and then it'll write. No. Okay, so that didn't work. I've done this before, and I just can't remember how now. Require the environment. Oh man, I swear to God, I've actually done this in workshops too, which makes this really bad, and I can't remember how to do it. Yeah, by HTML and a flat text report. Let's see. So, well, default's wall time, so that doesn't help me. I'm trying to think about how I can debug this. I'm definitely running config.ru. Yep. Why isn't there anything in the... Oh, because I've been... absolute path. Yep, there it is. Okay. So let's open... I believe it's called the... call stack printer. Yep, here it is. Okay, this is exactly what I wanted. So this is kind of an idea. I'm gonna have to make this way bigger for you guys. So this is gonna give me an idea of where all the time is going. And if I zoom in here so you can actually view this on my crappy video resolution. Okay. That's sort of interesting. The first layer of the stack is method missing. So these are actually all middlewares here. So we've got send file, action dispatch static, executor, which, so what this is saying here, right, is I'm spending 96, let me just check, hold on, see, this looks good on Twitch, yes it does. So I'm spending 96% of my time in action dispatch executor call and its children, and 4% of the total time is spent in execution wrapper run and 91% in middleware call. So those add up to 96.27%, right? And this breaks it out right here that 95% of my time inside of executor call is in local cache middleware call, etc., etc. So that's sort of interesting. I don't think we're not really looking for taking out 3 or 4% of the request here. What we really want to do is, since Puma, I think Puma Rails is 10 milliseconds for this route on TechEmpower, and Rhoda is 2. So we're looking for a lot bigger gains than 5%. So these are just all middleware, remote IP, request ID, and not, yeah, still in here, callbacks, session, head, conditional get, e-tag. Wow, so actually 50% of our time is spent in middleware. That's pretty extreme. And none of these are used in the tests. They're in the TechEmpower benchmarks. Like rack conditional get turns conditional get and e-tag are caching. I'm thinking of rack head. Rack head turns requests that are only looking for headers. It just stops and then returns headers. Show exceptions, debug exceptions, none of this stuff gets used in any of the TechEmpower tests. So in theory, right, if we're spending 50% of the time on my machine in tests, in middlewares, then that's 5 milliseconds. So if we cut all these middlewares out, that'll get us 66% of the way there to making this as fast as Rhoda. Now, I don't know if TechEmpower will actually accept any patch that I have here, just because there used to be a TechEmpower framework. Let's see if I can bring this up. There used to be a TechEmpower framework that they called Rails Stripped, which I think was supposed to be like Rails minus the middlewares. Yeah, but for some reason these tests don't actually run anymore. I just think it's because no one's touched this in 3 years. So this doesn't actually run anymore on TechEmpower. I think I'm just going to try to show how much I can speed up Ruby by or Rails by here, and we'll see what TechEmpower wants to do with it. This is an interest. So when you're doing this, you're always kind of looking for cliffs. Each layer of the stack frame is just going to use a certain amount of time. So the fact that going from static to executor, I go from 97 to 96%, that's sort of expected. That's just overhead of a new stack frame. What I'm looking for are big drop-offs. So this one is interesting. This one is a 5% drop-off between different layers, and this one's pretty big. This is a 30% drop-off. And it's in the reloader, which is weird. Maybe I need to run this in the production environment, actually. Because that's what, yeah, so this shouldn't be running. I think I need to rerun my benchmark and my profile in production. Because the reloader will not be running in production. So I think I just messed up there by running this in the development environment. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. I will just rerun my benchmarks. I will remove this. And yeah, that's the same. So I just need to rerun with Rails env production, and I'll use 4 workers again. So let's just do this. Okay. Voila. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of these terminal windows. Okay. And let's try this. It's be interesting to see if this is much faster. Yeah, so that's 33% faster. 3 milliseconds. Whoops. Meant to just do it again there. Just want to make sure I get a steady result here. So 3.5, what did I get before? 3, so between 3 and 3.5 milliseconds here we're getting. Encoding audio and video is probably not the best thing to do during a benchmark, but that's the way we're going to have to live tonight. Yeah, now it's going all over the place. I think I might just say it was 3 and call it a day. So anywhere between 3 and 3.5. We're not going to get great repeatable results in this while I'm streaming here. I'll call it between 3.5 and 4 milliseconds. Okay. So that's what it looks like in production. Let's go back to adding in RubyProf. Okay, and we'll call this route profile file. Do this a few times. The first time it'll be loading code and stuff like that. So let's do a few times in the profile file. And then reload this. And here we go. Okay. So again, we'll still have all these middlewares. Still seeing the drop off there at 5% and executor call. I don't really know what executor does. I think that was a Rails 5 thing. There's no massive 50% drop off anymore, or 30%, which was here before. They're still running reloader code, but I am running in production now. Wait, oh no, I'm not! Ha! That's right, I forgot to do it. Okay, hold on. Rails env equals production. Okay, run this a few times. Okay. Oh yeah, here we go. So a lot less time spent in middleware now. Now we're down to about 30% of our time in middleware, and then we get to the routing layer here. And not huge drop-offs along the way, really. Actually, 25% that we're in the routing layer. Not huge drop-offs here, but it does add up, right? Because from entering the stack to going to the router, it is 25%, so getting stuff out of here could save us, a millisecond on my machine, maybe 2 milliseconds on TechEmpower. Fixed, yeah. What was fixed? Did I mess something up? Or did I hope tell me if the stream is messed up, because this is the first time I've ever done this, so we're still working on technical issues here. Okay. So the question is, what TechEmpower says is that applications have to be quote unquote production ready. And I would just take that to mean that I'm not going to do anything that I would not deploy to production if my app was what TechEmpower was, which is just returning JSON and HTML. So I think that means, for example, I don't think I have a good case to remove remote IP, because I would not do that in production. Remote IP prevents people from IP spoofing you. I know it's kind of arguable, I guess. Oh, voice was broken. I think it might be my microphone. My microphone's kind of whack. Hopefully it'll turn out okay in the recording, at least. So remote IP basically just tells you if the IP address that comes in through the HTTP headers may not be real. That's to prevent people from IP spoofing you. So I don't know if I could really say that I would not do that in production. But send file, static, those both deal with static files, which we're not serving with this application. So I think there's definitely a case for removing those. I wonder if getting rid of cache strategy. Runtime and request ID, definitely I think a case for moving those. They just add headers, which we don't really care about in this application. I guess it just really depends on what your definition of a production ready application is, because the requirements for TechEmpower are so narrow that a lot of this stuff just doesn't get used. Even show exceptions and debug exceptions. I mean, exceptions are just not a part of the TechEmpower tests. It's hard to know. It's really hard to know like what other people are doing too to optimize their shit. In a way, the micro frameworks are optimizing themselves because they don't do this stuff in the first place. So I think I'm just going to start going through middleware and just removing it. And then we'll go from there. I did a conference talk on this a long time ago. So we're just going to go to my conference talk notes and figure out how I did this. It's Rails lightweight stack, which I'll just put into chat so that people don't have to actually click it. And I just want to remember what I did to get rid of middleware. Middleware.use. I want to get rid of it. I think you have to config middleware.delete, but these are all single file Rails apps, kind of cool. Maybe this isn't the example I want. API specific, this is probably it. Yeah, okay, here we go. So we're going to put this into application.rb. So this is going to go here. That's sort of interesting. I think this is part of the TechEmpower requirements. I wonder if that must only happen once, so it's probably not a big deal. Okay, so we don't need send file, we don't need static. These both have to do with definitely rack. So what rack send file does is basically it short circuits the request and serves files from the file system. If it's like this is like for like 400.html or whatever. Let's just double check action dispatch static. Make sure I understand exactly what it does. Yeah, same thing. Tries to find files on disks, so we don't need to do that. What else we got? This one's interesting because I don't know what it does. I think this is all new. So let's I assume this will be here. Yeah. It doesn't say what it does. Okay. We gotta read the code. Okay, interesting. It doesn't appear to do anything. Who made this? Yeah, this is related to the reloaders. That's so interesting. That's what I thought. But we're not using the reloader. So, what's this for? Should allow external code to run blocks of user code to do work at a similar unit size to a web request without needing to get intimate with active dispatch. Oh, look who it is, motherfucker. What's it doing here, Matthew? I don't understand. I don't understand why this is being used. I know nothing about the changes that were made in Rails 5 to code reloading, other than that they fucked up Sidekick for some time. Execution wrapper run. Where do I see that? I could just try removing. Whoops, wrong. I was going backwards to the wrong thing. I'm kind of curious. Wait a second. This isn't. Okay, wait. Execution wrapper run. State. Oh, it's this. Okay. Yeah. Okay. AR connection clear at the end of the request. That's interesting. Okay. So what's it all the time in execution wrapper run? I mean, this is all like sort of kernel catch. Okay, query cache. Okay, that's what I was expecting. So from what I understand, query cache is the middleware which will check out the database connection, which explains my initial confusion as to why this middleware was responsible for checking it back in. So this is almost like a callback, I assume, that query cache is sort of saying, hey, executor, please. Okay. I will probably have to read this later. But that executor just sort of gets a bunch of callbacks that get sort of executed at ensured, I guess, right? Because there's an ensure block there, right here, which is probably hard for you guys to read. But there's an ensure block right here. So that dot complete probably just calls a bunch of callbacks. So yeah, I mean, I can't do anything about this. Okay. Let's move right along and come back to that later if that becomes a problem. Yeah, runtime and request ID can both go. They just add headers that record the runtime of the request and they give it like a request ID. Obviously, it's called request ID. So we'll get rid of runtime. We'll get rid of request ID. Is that how you spell it? It's not rack, is it? It's action dispatch. So far, I think these are all reasonable. I mean, these are definitely not part of the TechEmpower requirements, and we're not serving any static files. So pretty much all reasonable so far. I don't think there's anything I can do about these logging middlewares. Did I remove them on my old API bench? I don't think I did. No, I don't think we can get rid of those. Whoops. Okay. I wonder if we could just... So, like, one of the things that TechEmpower talks about is, like, don't log to disk, which is, you know, should be kind of obvious why. Disk is slow. I wonder if we can turn off logging completely. If that's within the rules. Let's see what it does right now. Log level is error, so it's probably not doing anything major anyway. I'll look at that later. I don't think that's going to be a big deal. These are all logging middlewares. I think show and debug exceptions can both go. In theory, there will be no exceptions raised. Oh, that's really getting at the definition of production ready. I kind of actually, oops, there goes Flux. I forget what Rails even does if you don't have those middlewares up. I think it might just blow up. It's not really production ready if it just blows up, I guess. Maybe if I can get rid of one of them, maybe. As long as one of them rescues. And one of them... as long as one of them just like rescues and doesn't let the application die. I mean, what is debug exceptions doing in production? I thought that was a development only middleware. Puma should have a failsafe. Does it? I should know this. I'm the Puma maintainer. I can probably just test this by removing them and then making sure that I raise an exception. None of these will raise exceptions, so we'll just add a new route here, which just blows up. And we'll add a route here. Hello world. Exception. Okay. Let's just try that. Oh, I didn't remove it. So what happens now? Nothing. I just get a 500. Okay, that's interesting. That's not what I expected. So curl localhost exception. I get nothing, so it's just an empty 500. Okay. Well then, in theory, getting rid of these middlewares hopefully shouldn't change anything. My headers are still there. Did I not save? I didn't. Okay. I'll save them and get rid of show exceptions and debug exceptions. In theory, it shouldn't do anything different, according to Matt. It looks the same. It does a big, kind of a big blow up here. Yeah, no method each. That's sort of the failsafe, isn't it? I wonder if that's slower. I mean, it doesn't matter. We're not testing how fast the exception handling is. Let's see if curl returns the same result. If curl returns the same result, I think it's pretty legit. No content type. I don't think that's a big deal. It's just a 500. No one's checking the content type. Okay, this is like semi-legitimate. Alright, I'm okay with this. It's just so hard to like decide what production ready means when your application's job is to return a hello world JSON. This is why microbenchmarks are a problem. We're not using callbacks. Whose callbacks are these? That's the question. This is just an introduction to what all the middlewares do in Rails, isn't it? Yeah, okay, so these are the before-afters. Not from the controller, though. So who actually registers these? Because we haven't even gotten to like the meat of the application. We haven't even gotten to the routes yet, so it can't be like controller callbacks. Must be like what? Something that's just used internally. Kind of hard to know. I don't know if we can really get rid of that. It's pretty old. I don't think this is get riddable. Yeah, none built in, but it's like... Is it production ready to get rid of it? I don't know. Definitely get rid of cookies. There's no sessions in this application. I can probably get rid of this with a config setting, but I'm lazy. And there's session middlewares. I should probably just figure out how to actually do this. I'll bet I can change the session store to nil, hopefully. This is what I would expect would work. It booted. It ran. I guess the thing no one uses. Ah, this is great. Whenever I do work, I always have a Rails core member watching me over my shoulder because That's just, how I work most effectively. Yeah, okay, that got rid of them. Sweet. That's perfectly oh, well, still here. Cookies is still here. That's, well, I guess there's cookie usages other than sessions, so that makes sense. We're not using them from this application, so I still think it makes sense to get rid of them. There's just literally no cookies in this app, so we can opt out. At this point, I don't think the TechEmpower guys are going to let me get away with this. It would still be nice to like revive the stripped benchmark and just say like, hey, like the reason, like if you take all of the stuff, all this stuff out, all the stuff that you should 99% of the time be using anyway, then, you can do that and it'll be just as fast as Rhoda. Well, it won't be as fast as Rhoda, but it'll be quick. If getting rid of 5 milliseconds of framework overhead matters to you in your business. Okay, so the session abstract is actually still there. That's kind of weird that setting the session store to nil doesn't mean that we get rid of the session store. I guess it just goes back to something in memory, huh? And look how it spends 4% of its time in the session object there. So this is actually kind of a significant one too. I'm gonna get rid of rack session abstract persisted. It's a long middleware name. Rack, that's it, right? Rack session aspect. Okay. So this should work. Control C. Oh, that didn't work. Uninitialized constant. Yeah. Okay. This must be. This looked like it was getting loaded in a weird way. Let's learn more about it. Definitely don't know what this does. It's possible that it might get required after application.rb. I might have to require it and then remove it. Turn the new instance of persisted. It's really interesting that turning off the session store doesn't get rid of any of this. I guess I don't know anyone would really use Rails without a session store. I really can't think of anyone that would do that, but such is the world of microbenchmarks. How can we remove this? Oh yeah, I could have just said config.api only. The reason I don't think I can do this is because I think it gets rid of a few middlewares that we need, because one of the TechEmpower benchmarks is a HTML route. And I think config API only sort of assumes that you're only serving JSON. Let's try it quick and see if this gets rid of all the stuff that I want it to get rid of. Close. Look at that. Wow. Oh, okay. That was just one request that looked fast. It still has debug exceptions, conditional get. It got rid of sessions. Okay, so maybe we do want to go with this. I might just have to fix the route that it does HTML is the fortune teller route, which I may just have to fix later. That's alright, we can add middleware back in. I think they're going to see this line and tell me this has to be called Rails API or something like that. Okay, I think all of these are still in there, right? Got action dispatch static in there twice. Don't have cookies in there anymore, so I can get rid of that and then get rid of this. Refresh a few times. Okay, now we're looking good. Look at this. Look at all that time spent in e-tags. Fuck e-tags. Who needs caching anyway? We don't need rackhead or conditional get or e-tag support for this. This is never used. This is really the game of microbenchmarks. It's just executing less code than everyone else. Which, you know, that's why many frameworks like Rhoda do better. It's not because there's like some magical method of writing faster Ruby code that only the, you know, people that don't work on Rails know. It's just how much code are you executing? How much are you doing? I can guarantee that 80% of this stuff is not done in Rhoda for sure. Probably not in Sinatra either. Maybe some of this stuff is. Oh yeah, now we're getting quick here. So why is there 30% of our time spent in run callbacks now? That is fascinating. Okay, that's just something that happened on one request. That's why you always run this stuff more than once. Try to get it to a somewhat steady state here. So really, I did a lot of work here. It didn't really save me that much time. We'll have to rerun the benchmark here. So it doesn't look like there's anything else we can get rid of. Again, I just don't think I see the case for getting rid of callbacks or logger related stuff or remote IP, even though it's not used. Just, you know, deliberately removing security features just seems weird to me. I would never tell anyone to like deploy Rails without remote IP on, so despite the fact that it's not used here. Okay, I'm going to run a benchmark and then I'm going to take a quick look at the rest of the request here and see if we can find any quick gains. I'm about ready to go to bed, so we're just going to do a quick check here. Okay. And I'm going to do this a couple of times. The first one we're just going to not even look at and throw away because I got to do a warm-up here. Doesn't appear to be working. Makes me nervous. May have taken out too much. I think I did. Alright, what's going on here? Oh, because I have the profiler on. Doy, I gotta get rid of the profiler. Okay. Get rid of that shit. Shows you how much overhead these profilers have, especially a tracing profiler like RubyProf. Okay, that appears to work now. There we go. Oh yeah, we're looking zippy. So it looks like I might have shaved off a millisecond here. Yeah, this looks like 20–25%. So in case you came in later, I was getting about 3.5 to 4 milliseconds on this benchmark before. which I'm just getting so much variability here because I'm streaming. Yeah, you can actually see it slow down from time to time there, so it's just kind of hard to know. I might try this again after the stream. Yeah, and I'm slow again. With a Microbenchmark here, it's just going to be really hard to tell. Yeah. Okay, let's take a quick look. Let's bring the profiler back up, and let's take a quick look at the rest of the call stack. So here's where we enter the router. I was actually spending a lot of our time checking in that database connection. Look, 10%. Alright. And a lot of time building the requests as well. This is kind of the point where you would start to get in on micro optimizations here and looking at each of these methods and seeing what you can do to speed them up. Okay, so where do we exit the router here? Action controller metal dispatch. So that's 15% of our time in the router. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. The router is really one of the most mature parts of Rails, so I don't think we're going to find a lot to do there. Well, look at how little time we actually spend calling to JSON. It's like nothing. It's not even showing up. I guess that's not surprising considering, I mean, we're rendering hello world to JSON, so there's a lot of time in here though. Look at all these fucking stack frames. Lots of action controller related stuff. Active record. Again, kind of looking for the drop-offs here along the call stack. So we lost 5% of our time here. Whoops, no we didn't. Lost it here. Action controller metal dispatch. It's calling to array on something, I guess on the request. Another 5% looking up the view path context, which we don't use, unfortunately. Again, 99% of Rails apps will lose 18% on this. Filtering parameters. I mean, the real, that's interesting. So I've always wondered what the real use case would be for doing action dispatch, or sorry, inheriting from action controller metal. Clearly this looks like one of them. Again, it's definitely, inheriting from action controller metal is definitely something I would do in regular, like in an API app, so maybe that is production ready. This might end up being like a Rails API framework or something in TechEmpower, which I guess is fine. But getting rid of filtering parameters looks like it'll save us a lot of time. Whoops. And we lose 10% here on notifications. I wonder if we can turn notifications off. Probably not. It looks like, I mean, if things like connection handling are attached to it, that's probably a bad idea to turn off. Here's the actual controller callbacks. Whoa, getting all messed up here. We don't have callbacks in the controller. Sort of interesting. It's still, oh, so we have CSRF. We could turn that off. I mean, there's no CSRF in this application because don't have sessions or users or anything of the sort. So that's interesting. Maybe these don't get called then. And then we spend 12% of the time in actual render. And then 10% of our time in render to body. Normalize render. Yeah, I mean, we can short circuit a lot of this by just calling response body equals ourselves. That's not normally the way people would do it. I'll have to talk to the TechEmpower people and see what they think. So what I'm proposing there is you can actually just... So this is what JSON looks like. Zoom in for you. So we do this, render JSON. Instead, what we could do is this. And that looks like it'd eliminate a little bit of overhead. So my next step on this will probably be to inherit not from application controller, but action controller metal. I might have multiple controllers for that purpose because maybe different controllers I can optimize differently on that score. And probably want to look at active support notifications. Maybe I will look at the router. I don't think there's really anything I can do there. I'm not a god. Yeah, and just getting rid of filter parameters would be good, which I'll do if I inherit from action controller metal. So I hope this has been somewhat instructive about really just working with the RubyProf call stack profiler in the context of a request and using that to figure out where the time went. I find it's very intuitive because unlike a flame graph, which can get a little bit intimidating, it just makes the actual call stack itself a lot easier to digest and manipulate because you can do all these accordion things. Yeah, hopefully this will go back to TechEmpower before the next round 15, which I don't know when that's going to happen. But hopefully this will make our Rails benchmark look a little bit better. All right, I'm going to sign off. Thank you if you watched, and talk to you later.